Welcome to the NAO show. This is the sophisticated lower decibel version of the NAO show because Sean is not here to yell his freaking head off. As you can see, we have a guest in his place. Aaron is here with us, sitting out there by the Frisco Bay. How you doing, Aaron?
Yep, live from San Francisco. Doing well, doing well.
Welcome in, man. Glad to have you back. It's been about 9 months if Sleeper was right. That's 9 months ago we did this.
Yep, sounds about right. It's been a little while, too long.
How you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing okay.
All right.
It's a little chilly here. It's only the low 80s, so I'm bundled up with my winter hat on this time.
You had to start getting thermal tank tops, maybe. Well, we got a couple of trades to talk about, and then we're going to do something called gold mines and land mines. I wish I could take credit for it, but I heard it on another podcast. I thought it was a pretty good idea. So it's basically going through ADP, kind of round by round, and seeing where there are gold mines and seeing where there are land mines. So it should be a fun show since we're all getting ready to do our redraft league. So without further ado, let's get it going. First trade we're going to talk about was with Tank Top Mike and the DBs. So Tank Top Mike got a 2023 third rounder, and the DBs got JD McKissick. Start us off, Mike, since that's your trade.
Yeah, this is a real barn burner of a trade. It's a league-altering deal here. But yeah, I mean, from my side, I picked up JD McKissick off waivers a long time ago. I think early in the season last year. So I had nothing in him. So if I can trade a guy like that, a 27-year-old, slightly aging running back, and get any kind of draft value back, I'm cool with that. He was more valuable on the Docking Bros roster right now anyway. I'm sure they're worried about Antonio Gibson's, his toe or his ankle?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's keeping Brandon at least up at night. So now with McKissick back there, he's probably sleeping better. But yeah, for me, it was I got some draft capital back on a guy that I had nothing in, and sure, it's your third round pick, Mark. So I felt good about that.
Gosh, in 2023.
2023, yeah.
Yeah, I already started trading those away.
I was going to go after their 2022, decided not to since I think that's all they had. They didn't have much in 2022. So
now they had a lot at one time, but you look at it now, I think they got like 3 picks maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And they're holding on to that first like it's a nugget of gold or something, man. They had 3 or 4 at one time, it seems like. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the baseball trades where, players traded for future considerations. It's so far in the future, you don't even know what it is. But I think it makes sense for the DBs. Obviously with Gibson, may or may not be a potential first-tier running back this year, depending on who you ask. I'm sure they want to handcuff the situation and protect their assets as much as possible. So I definitely see why they would trade for it. And yeah, I mean, for a waiver pickup, third round pick 2 years from now, we'll have to do it as a trivia question, see who he gets in return in a couple of years. But yeah, real barn burner.
Yeah. Not much to it. Someone called, I think it was Evan that said it was a handcuff, but I don't really consider him the handcuff. I don't know who would be. Someone mentioned Barber. Maybe somebody else rises up there. They got that kid Jarrett there now, but yeah, he's a little undersized. He's a pass catching back. He was when he was with Seattle. He is now, and he had an athletic comp to Theo Riddick, and we all remember Theo was a great pass catcher, but he wasn't much of a guy to run the ball too much. So, I don't look at him as a handcuff. But if Gibson was to go down, they might have a flex there. Someone they could flex in.
That was the trouble. It was a little bit of a bigger trade at some points. It kind of devolved into this because of that. On my roster, McKissick was a spot start. I could use him matchup based as a flex guy, and they wanted him as a handcuff. So if you start throwing him in as a piece in a trade, our values were a little too far off. But a nice third, I think, fits everybody.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I wonder if he's going to do what he did last year because he doesn't have Alex Smith anymore. And I don't know that Fitzpatrick he's never been the type to check down a lot. Even when he probably
True.
should, he's looking downfield. He's swinging that damn thing,
He's going for broke every pass. I mean,
Exactly.
he's in the league for how long now?
Yeah.
He's throwing everything out there.
Yeah. So if I was doing projections, I think I would project McKissick as a little bit lower in the targets department than last year, but he definitely could be a good flex piece depending on the situation. So yeah, worked out good for both of you guys, I think. All right, second trade we're going to talk about here is Mick Jammer, the mighty Mick Jamars. And traded with, I'm going to call him Humpty. We call him so many things, I don't remember what to call him anymore. I've kind of settled on Humpty. So that Sean came up with that one. I think that fits pretty well. Anyway, Mick Jammer gets Rondell Moore and a 2023 first rounder. And Humpty gets Deshaun Watson and a 2022 third rounder. Start us off again, Mike.
Now, this one is actually like a trade worth talking about. But yeah, I think, honestly, we were joking around on what guys were saying in chat earlier about this trade. I think a lot of it was actually right. And I was kind of joking. I was just going to read it straight off the screen, but I guess I won't do that all the way. But no, I do kind of agree with what everybody was saying. I think this is one of those well-rounded trades where it's still dependent on Deshaun Watson. I think a lot of the analysis we went over with the first trade with him still kind of holds true, since really nothing has changed with Watson since the last time we talked about him in a trade. I think the big piece is going to be, if you end up keeping the 2023 first, or not, but I think that's a big deal in this kind of trade, especially for a guy like Watson right now. But if he comes back, he plays well, Humpty gets a nice upgrade at quarterback that, he kind of needs, here fairly soon. So yeah, I like it for both of you guys actually as well. Obviously, if he comes back and he's Deshaun Watson, I think Humpty wins this one a little bit, but that's the gamble.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I think it's a good trade for both of you. Rondale Moore on that Arizona team, I think he'll have a decent career, hopefully. Deshaun Watson, I mean, is a little bit of an X factor, with everything going on off the field. I think Matthew Stafford, who is his current starting quarterback, I think he'll actually have a better year than most predict. He's on a hell of a football team with the Rams, a little underpowered because of Jared Goff. I think this is really going to expose what limitations Jared Goff brought to the table in the past season. So it may or may not be needed by the end of the season. This would be a good one to look back at and kind of compare where they end up. But I think, if Deshaun Watson starts wherever he's starting, heard some things over the past week, but we've been hearing things all off season. He's a heck of a player. He's going to find a place somewhere. So I think, getting the first round pick, definitely worth it, even though it's a couple years out. I like Moore as a receiver. So I think you guys both did pretty well.
Yeah. Even if Stafford does do well and he doesn't really need Deshaun now, he'll have him later on, and he'll be around longer than Stafford. And
absolutely.
He really needed to get a little deeper at that position, something a little more established. So, he went and got his guy. I look at Rondale Moore and Deshaun Watson both, and I think of them as guys that you want to get in on them now before the price maybe goes up. There's a lot of unknowns with both of them. Rondale Moore is a small guy. He's short. He's really built well though. His BMI is good. He's durable. He had some hamstring issues, and so we don't have a lot of results from college from him. But what we do have was awesome, and he was doing it at like 18 years old or 19 years old. True freshman, I think, and so we want to see what he can do in the pros now. And I think in that offense with if they do the true air raid, which is 4 wide receiver sets, then he's going to be the kind of guy that's the check down guy that can run after the catch, and he might be a good stack with Kyler for me. So I was really interested in getting him before he had a few good games and everybody starts going crazy over him, So it's a little bit of a gamble for me and big gamble for him with Deshaun. But I think Deshaun will be back playing at some point. I thought I would have Deshaun longer, but I kind of thought I'd let him get back playing, let that value go back up, and I'd trade him high. But he came in with a pretty good offer. I got a first rounder out of it, so I'm happy with it, and I'm happy to get a little more receiver depth. So I think that it was a nice one for both of us. One of those where you're just kind of like, both of them did okay for themselves. So and you're right, it could be better if Deshaun gets back out there and gets back up to a top 5 quarterback, then Humpty may have the best of this one, depending on what Rondale Moore does. So depending on what I do with that first round pick. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Here's a quick tidbit. Since you traded for Watson and then traded away Watson, and Sean, you might want to fast forward through the next 45 seconds. So you traded away a 2022 mid-third, Derek Carr and Kenny Galladay. You got in return Gabe Davis, a 2021 second-round pick, which we lost track of somewhere in time, Rondale Moore, and a 2023 first. So I know the keep trade cut values are always agreed upon, but if you use that website, that is a difference of Justin Herbert that you gained in value if you take out Watson of those trades.
Wow. Okay.
Not a bad little flip.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too bad. We'll see what Sean has to say about that next week. Stay tuned for some ranting from Sean. He told me today he loved the trade. So right now, I don't know if he thought it all through, but right now he was happy with it. Thought I did well on that. So, all right. Well, let's get into our gold mines and landmines. This should be fun. So we're gonna just go through the ADP as it stands today, half point PPR. We're gonna look in some ranges and see who we identify as gold mines and landmines. So let's get right to it. Start out with range 1 to 13. Aaron, give us a gold mine in there.
Yeah, sure. So this is probably the easiest section to choose from. I'm going with Derrick Henry as the gold mine. I mean, obviously, 2,000-yard running back. It's really tough to find depth at running back in fantasy. He's the number 3 overall rated on my chart, but he's the first rated that has playoff potential. Well, maybe Minnesota, depending on who you ask. But the only one who made the playoffs last year. Just a heck of a runner, can break through tackles. I mean, there's really not much to say. He had 2,000 yards last year. He's going to get an extra game this year. So, it's just, he's a beast among men.
Yeah. Well, my only concern about Henry, and I've said it before, is that the carries are piling up. And it seems like if anybody's going to break the trend, it could be him with the shape that he's in. But I do worry about that a little bit. It gives me a little bit of hesitancy with him.
Yeah,
Mike,
that's fair.
Any thoughts on Henry and Mike? And do you have a gold mine you want to add in?
No, I really agree with Henry. I think both sides of Henry, but like you said, he's in an incredible shape. We all anxiously await Brandon to post workout videos of Derrick Henry, but they are actually really impressive. I think you're right. If anyone's going to break that trend of getting some miles on his legs, it's going to be a guy built like Derrick Henry. But
yeah.
I think my quick little gold mine is going to be Nick Chubb at pick 6, actually.
Okay.
I can agree with that.
I do have some Nick Chubb shares, to be fair, as well. But yeah, I think they obviously, Kareem Hunt's still there, so it's going to eat into him a little bit. But I think ADP-wise at 6, that's some pretty good value for a team that's going to be run first with him. They like him, obviously. They signed him to a very Browns-friendly team deal. He's extended there for a while, so they like him. They're going to use him. I like him at 6.
I said in a recent chat, I thought he might be the best pure runner in the league. And if someone wants to tell me who's better and show me why, I'd like to see it, because that guy really, if he was catching the ball, I mean, he'd probably be the number one guy. Yeah. Any thoughts on Chubb there? Oh, Aaron, I know you you got him rostered, so I know you like him.
Yeah, no, and you know, he's an amazing running back. The only thing that gave me pause on this list was the fact that he's splitting carries with Kareem Hunt, but really, they're trying to get both of them a starter's load of carries each game, and kind of run through the running game. So yeah, I can't really argue much with that.
Yeah, no, and it keeps them both fresh, and I think that helps a lot. They both are. They're able to close those games out, and you can see they want to run the ball and play defense. So, I think there's enough for both of them to go around there. I went with Devontae Adams down there at 12, and I must say he might be down at 12 because of the Aaron Rodgers uncertainty, and that ADP may adjust, and he may be going higher. But seeing him down there at 12, I was thinking, man, if I was picking on the turn, I'd definitely be going for Adams and trying to get running back later, because you get down there and Adams is probably has the most value. So I really liked him being down there at number 12. Now that Rodgers is back, I think they're gonna run it back, run it back 2021. So
Yep.
That's who I went with. So all good choices, I think, though. Aaron, do you want to give us your first landmine in that round?
Yeah, sure. So this will probably be a little controversial,
Okay.
but I mean, this is the top 13 pick. So I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor. And the reason I'm going to, I mean, obviously, I think he's a very talented back. He had a decent rookie season, amazing career at Wisconsin. They have three decent running backs, Marlon Mack, Hines, on that roster. They don't know who their quarterback's going to be, whether or not he's going to stay healthy. Right now, their starter isn't. So there's a lot of question marks for me in that environment. It's not necessarily an indictment of the player, but more the environment. And of course, I can't not mention the fact that Madden has Marlon Mack rated with a higher overall rating than JT, which I thought was funny. But I mean, there's just a lot of competition there. It's kind of like the 49ers situation. There's a lot of great backs that at any given time could get some good carries. So I think that may be limiting in his body of work for the season.
I think Humpty made that rating when he was a night on the gummies there. When they rated Mac, I think they had Humpty working for him.
Yep, must be.
Now, Taylor, I agree. They like a committee, it seems, and they did it last year, and I don't see any reason why they won't do it this year. So I can see where you're coming from there. Mike, you want to give us any thoughts on that, and then give us your
I was actually going back and forth between two guys, and one of them was Jonathan Taylor. So I do agree on a lot of that. I think the Carson Wentz injury really hurts his value slightly. I lost his name. They hurt the offensive lineman that they just lost to.
Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that hurts, and then obviously the committee, and then suddenly it's just you start piling on, and he's a freak of an athlete, but how much can he overcome on a team like that?
Yeah.
But I was going back and forth with him and actually Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
He's right there at 7, so JT's at 8, Barkley's at 7, same kind of thing. The team is not looking great in camp right now. Danny Dimes is not looking like he's going to be the future there. A lot of weird news coming out of Giants camp. And at what point is Saquon Barkley injury prone? At what point do we have to start, throwing that at him? Sean probably agrees, since we all know that Barkley has screwed over Sean a few times.
Yeah.
But at that 7, maybe that's right around where he should be going, I guess. But I'd be weary at 7 taking him.
Well, Saquon was my guy too. A lot of the same reasons. I think they brought in Devontae Booker, and he was the one that kind of killed Jacobs last year, coming in there and getting just enough carries and just enough receptions to take away from Jacobs. And Booker was pretty good, and I think he can still be good. The line, though, is probably the biggest thing there. The line is one of the worst in the league. They just haven't done enough to get that line fixed up. And Yeah. So everything you said about the injuries and, going, being picked that high, I think you could be disappointed. And I think they just got to manage him this year more if they want to keep him healthy. I think he is starting to get that injury prone tag, and they're just going to have to manage him a little bit or manage his work a little more. So I think 7 is a little high for somebody that might be gives some carries to somebody else and having his workload managed. So I agree with that one for sure. All right, let's go to the next round, 14 through 26. Aaron, give us a gold mine.
All right. So I think this one will probably be controversial as well. My gold mine is J.K. Dobbins, and here's why. There's a couple of reasons, really. Mark Ingram is out of the fold. He's now clearly the lead back there. But, I mean, over the past couple of seasons, the Ravens have really experienced, like, they've had great success during the regular season. They've had colossal failure in the playoffs, and they've certainly underproduced compared to where they were expected to, contend for titles and everything. I think they're really trying to reinvent how this offense functions because they realize that once defenses have figured out a way to stop Lamar Jackson from scrambling, they really have nothing behind that. And that's kind of why they get beat in the playoffs, in my opinion. So they went out, they got Sammy Watkins. They ended up drafting a receiver. Forget his name at the time. I think it was Bateman.
Bateman,
yeah. In the draft. I really think they're trying to expand their passing game. And I really think they're trying to focus the running game with the running backs and maybe have Lamar Jackson scramble less as a last resort and become more traditional. So I think that Dobbins could be a benefactor of that, especially now that he's going to get more of the load and has less competition with Mark Ingram being out of there. But we'll see what happens.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, that's, this one's going to be hard to talk about because obviously I was thinking about him as a landmine. We all talked about that in the beginning. So that is kind of an interesting point, though, because I do see them trying to move that toward a more conventional offense. But that is a little bit of why I was worried about Dobbins being a landmine at that point. If they move there, he's always got Gus Bus behind him. At what, how much of a committee is that going to be? Those are really just, and again, it's not a knock on the player. I think he's a fantastic athlete, but they definitely have some trust in Gus Bus behind him there. And, like we've talked about on the show a few other times, the 3-down back role is completely gone from the league at this point. Even the last few guys like Zeke and, Dalvin Cook are fading out of that. So, if they go to a traditional thing, I think it's going to be a bit of a committee. And that's my biggest worry with them. But I do agree. I think they're going to go to that kind of more of a having Lamar Jackson run less and try to do more of that.
Yeah, reading in between the lines, I could see that for them for sure. Who'd you have as your gold mine there, Mike?
Actually, I hadn't really looked too much at a gold mine here.
I'll give mine then while you're taking a look. I went with AJ Brown. I feel like he should be higher. Let me see where he is exactly. Pick 26. So on the ADP, it's showing him 301 as a 301. So he's right there at the turn. And I felt like he should be higher. So to me, in that round, to get him is he's a gold mine. If you can get him down there at the end of that second round, I think he's a gold mine. He's just, despite the lower volume passing attack, he is their top guy. He's going to get targeted a lot. He does so much after he gets the ball. His first year in the league, he had a crazy yards after the catch stat or level, and I said he can't keep it up. But then he came back and he was under it last year, but he was still a top in the league. I think he was in the top 10 in the league still. So he's got 2 years of proven yak ability, and I think he's going to be, he's going to get 7-8 targets a game or more, and he's going to do a lot with the ball when he gets it in his hand. They got Julio there now to help stretch the field a little bit, so I feel like AJ Brown's a smash there in the second round. I think he's the gold mine.
Taking another little look at this, I think I might have to agree with AJ Brown at that point. And a lot of it because you start looking at the guys who you get after him, and no, Keenan Allen's no slouch, obviously, but after that, you're looking at kind of the next tier of wide receiver at that point. So I think, yeah, AJ Brown at a turn like that at 26, that'd be your good wide receiver value right there.
Yeah, I think he's gonna sneak up into that top tier this year. I think he's gonna be kind of one of those consensus, top 5 to 10 wide receivers in the draft. I think he'll have, if he stays healthy, of course, he'll have that third year of stats that you just can't ignore anymore. So, well, Aaron, why don't you give us your landmine of this round then?
Yeah. So, this was kind of a tough choice for me. I'm going to go with CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
Okay.
because I think the offense and, the fact that the Chiefs are always in the contention for the Super Bowl and everything like that, obviously always a high-powered offense, it almost is to his detriment. I know last year watching his games, because, Tyreek Hill's on my team, and I'm pretty heavily invested in their success and just kind of watching how they operate. I noticed down by the end zone, CEH didn't really get as many targets, and on third down, he didn't get as many touches as other running backs may get in that situation. Because they have Kelsey, because they have Tyreek Hill, because they have so many weapons. It just, so many people get opportunities in the red zone and to score. So I still think he's a decent running back. I just think at that position, he may be giving up too many touchdowns to value where he's ranked, which is, I can't find it now, but 18. He's ranked 18. So second round pick, essentially. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, mid second round. And I tend to agree with that. It's like they don't have to have him take over any games to win, so they're probably not going to. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think he gets a lot of the you want the starting running back on an offense like the Chiefs, no matter who it is at all. And, so you're going to get a boost in your ADP based off that no matter what. But I've said this a few other times about CEH, and I agree completely with this about the touchdowns. I think if he improves those touchdowns, it's some great value there. But yeah, that's my biggest worry about him as well, actually.
Yeah. Who'd you have for a landmine, Mike? Gonna go with JK, or are you gonna go?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my JK. I think.
Let's give us the other side of the coin then.
I think my other one I was thinking about was Joe Mixon at 17, and again, if Sean were here, he'd not like that pick. But yeah, and actually, kind of what I said to Sean at one point not too long ago was I want Mixon to be the guy that everybody thinks he's going to be, and until he actually does and has a season like that, I think taking him at 17 is also a pretty kind of a risk for me anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're not shaping up to be a great team this year either.
Yeah, I guess and their line is still a big question mark. They drafted a couple of guys, but they weren't high picks, and so we don't know how they're going to perform. If they're going to perform to the level of where they were drafted, and might not be looking too good. I guess with Mixon, at least, I think you can count on being involved in the passing game a little bit more. I'm going with JK also. And, I'll tell you what, though, Aaron made such a good case. He definitely he let me see another side of things. And, yeah, definitely looks like they want to pass the ball, but they just don't have a good history of passing to their running backs. So between the committee with Gus, they paid him pretty good money to stay on. And he always performs well when he's in there, and he's going to get carries. He's going to take carries away from JK, and JK is a great pass catcher, but I just don't see him using them too much if they do like they've been doing. So we'll have to see if Aaron's right and they kind of change their philosophy and they pass the ball more. It would be smart to pass to J.K. Dobbins more and let him do some things. But at this point, based on what I know, I'd kind of think that you might be disappointed if you pick him that high, expecting him, especially say somebody goes wide receiver in the first round and that's their first running back. I wouldn't want him to be my first running back. If he was my second running
fair.
back, I could deal with that. So it just depends on, I guess, who you picked in that first round. But yeah, that's to me, he's a little risky where he is. I just feel like he could be a disappointment. He may not come through with what you're thinking there in that round. But
Yeah, that's fair.
interested to see it though, because yeah, they brought in Bateman, they brought in Wallace, they still got Marquise Brown. You know, I think he's got an injury right now, but he'll be on the field before long. And Mark Andrews, and yeah, they could pass the ball if they want to, if they put their mind to it. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a philosophy change in Baltimore.
Yep.
I agree with you. They need to. I think they need to. I think teams are catching up with what Lamar does and starting to, you get in the playoffs and you're playing a decent defense because they're in the playoffs, and these guys can game plan against Lamar. So they got to do something to put him over the top. All right, let's move on to the third round. That's going to be picks number 27 through 39. Give us a gold mine, please, Aaron.
All right. So for me, pick number 37 is Josh Allen. He's my gold mine because he actually one of the highest scoring, and believe he might actually be the highest scoring fantasy player last year. And, and partly because, obviously he had a great passing season, but he's also one of the few quarterbacks that consistently scores rushing touchdowns. And for that value, if you're looking at a quarterback that can score rushing touchdowns versus, maybe a second tier running back, it's a good value at that position. So I think that's a good choice for 37.
Yeah, I can see that. You get an advantage at the position. It's sort of like tight ends, quarterbacks. There's certain ones that you're willing to pick high. Third round might be a little higher normally, but if you get that advantage at that position and it pays off for you, then you got to get him. He's not going to last long, and if he's going there already, then you got to jump on him when you can. So I can see that one. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I obviously, I picked Mahomes pretty high in our league, but so I appreciate the value of a quarterback like that in your roster.
Yeah.
And the chart we're using, it has an interesting fact here. Somebody very much agrees with you because his highest draft is 1.01. So somebody took him first overall at least one time.
Wow. Who'd you have there, Mike, in that round?
Well, I'm kind of going back and forth on two guys. Both of them make me sound like a homer. So I'm just going to take CeeDee Lamb down there at 35.
All right.
I know, but all reports coming out of camp are he is by far the best player, on that offense right now. Obviously, Amari Cooper's dealing with some stuff, but it sounds like Lamb is, going to come into the season pretty strong, and having a wide receiver on an offense that's probably going to have to be throwing the ball quite a bit is pretty appealing to me as well. But I know it makes me sound terrible as a Cowboys fan, but that's if I'm taking CeeDee Lamb in the third like that, looking at some of these other wide receivers that are around him, maybe Mike Evans is a little low at 43, but we'll get there. But the other wide receivers around him, yeah, I want that kind of value.
Well, I went with the same. I like Terry McLaurin a lot, but I saw CeeDee Lamb there in that round and a little bit lower than McLaurin there. And I was thinking if I had started out with two running backs and I saw CeeDee there in the third, I'd be happy to have him as my number one guy. I think he will make that jump. I mean, he already had a great season, and everybody knows what happened in Dallas last year. He still had a really good season. He could have been right up there with Jefferson if he'd had Dak all year, I think. So I think that he's definitely somebody I'm happy to see there in the third round. I think he's a pretty safe pick right there. So I agree with you. And I tried too, Mike. I was looking at the other guys. McLaurin was the only other one I liked in there, but I just thought he was gonna. Thought he's the more of the real deal, the more safe pick. I thought anyway. So Any thoughts on CD there? Since we both went with CD, Aaron.
No, I mean, and the only concern there is there are a lot of options, but I mean, he certainly is coming into his own. And I really think the Cowboys offense is going to have a monster year with Dak back. I think there's going to be plenty of targets to go around, much like the Chiefs offense. So yeah, man, no complaints there. It's definitely a good choice.
Well, why don't you give us your landmine?
All right. So my landmine, and Sean may want to cover his ears for this, but at 27, Josh Jacobs. And there's really a couple of reasons for this. One is their offensive line doesn't look to be very good at all. That's a big concern when you're trying to be a run first team, I should say.
Yeah. And
not only that, it seems like Gruden's trying to do this two-back type of system, much like the Browns. They signed Kenyon Drake, and I still don't fully understand why they did this, but they signed Kenyon Drake to $14 million contract for 2 years, $11 million guaranteed. He's going to have a big part of that offense. And, obviously like Booker did last year, he's going to vulture some carries and some targets. I think the goal is to have them both be incredibly successful at running back. I just don't think in reality it's going to happen in the way that they'd like. So I think this is one of those situations where great talent, unfortunately, is in a situation that isn't ideal to maximize their results. So that's kind of where I see that just underwhelming with the results because of all the things going on in the situation.
Yeah, I can see that. And what they did with their line, it just boggles the mind. They had a decent line there and they just dismantled it. So I don't know what the heck what they're thinking about. And I do agree that with the money they paid him, he's probably going to be this year's Devontae Booker. And probably because, Jacobs has been dinged up here and there. Not any major injuries, but nagging ones that have kept him out of games. And again, probably looking to manage some carries and split the load up a little bit. So, yeah, it's kind of high to be picking Jacobs. I agree with that. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, honestly, that was my pick as well. And the biggest reason is, the signing of Kenyon Drake. I think he didn't get signed at that amount of money to be a change of pace, let Jacobs rest kind of thing. Like he got signed to be part of that offense. And the Raiders maybe they're trying to do like a Browns type deal, like, two viable running backs, but I don't think their offense is, quite good enough yet to support something like that. So yeah, he was my pick as well there.
Oh, okay. Well, I had a different one. Mike, you might want to cover your ears. I went with DeAndre Swift. It was real close with Jacobs, I got to say, but I think Jacobs I like the talent. Definitely all the reasons you guys spelled out there. He's definitely someone to be wary of. Maybe try to pick him a little bit lower than that. But I went with Swift because it's just so much unknown there in Detroit right now, and probably not going to be a really good offense. Jamal Williams is probably going to do to Swift what he did to Aaron Jones, come in there and be involved in the offense and take carries and receptions away from Swift. I kind of see a bit of a committee there maybe. So, yeah, I think being on a bad offense, bringing in Jared Goff, doesn't excite anybody. And splitting time with Williams, I looked at him and I thought, yeah, I don't know if I'd touch him in that round. I might look for him further down, but not that high. Because, you're probably looking at him as maybe your second running back by that time. So if you're starting two running backs, it may be the second guy. So, Mike, tell me why I'm wrong.
No, honestly, if we're looking at this in a redraft lens, there's not much to argue about there really. I kind of like him more as a dynasty asset than a redraft guy at that round. Obviously I'm a little higher on him than most maybe because I did make that trade for him, but like I said, that was more of a long-term thing. I think he has some pretty nice talent. I like my pass catching backs. Obviously, I made a trade for Eckler as soon as the league started because I didn't get to draft him. So, and I had McKissick immediately when he went on waivers. So I like that kind of back.
Yep.
I like, I think they age well. They, they're in a bad offense. If your back can still catch passes, they're still involved. They don't get phased out, completely. But no, in a redraft lens, I agree. He's kind of a scary guy to be drafting at that point. But give him to me in a dynasty though.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We mentioned Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, all guys that, on paper we love. These are good athletes. They can catch the ball. And, it's just that you're looking at the situation more than anything, I think. And, that changes a lot of things. So, and you're right, Mike, that the 3-down back seems to be going away. So that's where you kind of have to pick the guy that, if he is in a committee, who's gonna do the most with his carries. So that's why I had Swift there, just because I just don't know what he's going to do in that committee on a possibly a bad defense. They don't, or a bad offense, because they don't, look at their receivers. They're just reloading, starting over again. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, Hawkinson could be their top guy, at tight end. So that's the thing with Detroit. I'm just kind of like in redraft. I don't know if I'll have too many Lions on my team. Well, let's do a couple more rounds and we'll call it a night. Let's go to the next round here, which will be the 4th round, picks 40 through 52. Give us a gold mine, please, Aaron.
All right, let's take a look here. I had somebody. So, all right. So, and this may or may not, this is something obviously that we haven't seen him play a snap yet. There's a couple of good options here. I'm actually going to go with Kyle Pitts in this round.
Okay.
I know he hasn't played anything yet, but just knowing what he's capable of, playing at Florida, I've seen a few games in college.
Mm-hmm.
Being in the offense that he's in and knowing how they like to feature tight ends, I think he's a more athletic version of Austin Hooper with better range. He could have a phenomenal season in that offense. And with Calvin Ridley on the outside, obviously Julio's not there, but I think there's more upside with Pitts than many. Obviously, Kyler Murray would also be a great choice. That was certainly an honorable mention. There's a few good players in this round, but I think from my perspective, there's a lot of upside with what Kyle can do, and I think he's probably if you look at Jimmy Graham in his early career with the Saints, that's probably the closest potential that I comparison that I can make.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he hasn't played a snap yet, so we'll see what happens.
It's not, I don't know. It's a gamble, maybe picking him in the 4th round, but if you've missed out on the top 3, which most people are saying is Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller, in whatever order you want to put them, maybe Pitts there in the 4th round isn't a bad gamble if you think you've done well in the first 3 rounds. I kind of get it. I mean, I'm on the fence with it right now. I'm thinking a lot about him in my draft strategies for redraft and wondering what I might do. So we see he's going there in the 4th. That's around where it's going to cost you.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, this one, he's got to be one of the most polarizing on opinions in drafts right now. The way I'd look at it is if I see Pitts there in the 4th, but then someone like we just talked about, Hawkinson, is down at 60, would I want to take someone like Pitts there and maybe take a chance on Hawkinson a little bit later in a draft, something like that. I am not very good at drafting tight ends. I end up with Evan Engram all the time. In almost every league, it's terrible. So maybe I'm not the best to comment on a tight end at any point in a draft, but
well, if you look at some of the names around him, you got Kyler Murray in there, Mike Evans, Mari Cooper's in there, Chris Godwin, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen. You look at around. I think there's names there I would take over Pitts. And I might do like you, Mike, and look for somebody a little further down. I'm kind of with tight end. You either get them early or you get them really late. I think get one of those.
That's how
top...
you end up with Evan Engram. But.
Yeah, You just got to know when to pull the trigger and on who, you know.
Pro Bowl tight end Evan Ingram, though.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. You're right. It's very polarizing for sure. Who'd you have there, Mike, for a gold mine?
I actually went with Mike Evans.
Okay.
I think if you're looking down at that round, he's pretty much a guaranteed 1,000-yard wide receiver. You know, and obviously a lot of the other wide receivers are, you know, fantastic around him. But yeah, I guess at that point, give me some of the guaranteed production of someone like Mike Evans, especially with Tom Brady clearly not slowing down. You know, I think he just plays until he dies, really. And there's no regression. I guess I'm not going to worry about Tom Brady, you know, slowing down until I see it. And I haven't yet. So yeah, give me another 1,000-yard receiver in the fourth. That's fine.
Yeah, he's always a solid pick. It's interesting to see him down there, but I think he was a little dinged up last year, wasn't he? And seemed like seemed like there was times that where Brady, when he really needed a touchdown, he was going to Evans, and I think he has some confidence in him. So it's not a bad pick there, I don't think at all. I went with Robert Woods, so that's going to make Ian happy, which is going to make Sean upset. So we didn't mean to, Sean, but seems like we're coming at you today. But yeah, I went with Robert Woods, and you know, I think Ian's tried to trade him to everybody in the league and talked him up. And you know, if you look at it, the last 3 years, his finishes were wide receiver 11, 13, and 14. I mean, that's pretty solid, you know. And he's getting an upgraded quarterback. He's still got some juice, so I like him there in the fourth. I think I'd be happy to pick him there and go for that consistency. He's just not, you know, he's not a sexy pick ever. He's nothing really exciting about him, but you look at those finishes and it's hard to go against that. There's some good guys in that round, but I look at Woods and I think that, you know, I'm going to go for that consistency right there. He's getting towards the end of his career, but he's playing at a high level right now, I think.
Yeah, I agree with both of those, honestly. Looking at Woods, I think that offense as a whole is going to have an increase in production in LA, just because they have kind of what has been the unknown missing piece. Obviously, Tom Brady is immortal. So yeah. I was wondering if we would make it through an entire show without Sean that didn't have a Tom Brady reference, but we didn't. So that's all good.
All right, why don't you give us your landmine in that round, Aaron?
Yeah, so I'm actually going with Raheem Mostert. And I know that's a little crazy, but the challenge is there's so many decent running backs in San Francisco, and they can really choose to develop their game plan around any one of them on any given Sunday. I know this because I've been the benefactor of it, and also started somebody and have the other guy score 3 touchdowns because Kyle Shanahan didn't want to listen to me that week. Mostert, I think is probably one of the fastest running backs on the team. He definitely has a lot of potential. He just hasn't historically been an every down starter without being injured. Last year, I mean, he obviously had multiple injury issues. Yeah. So I'm really hoping that we get past the injury stuff and that he has a good productive season. And if he can, he'll have a great year. But if he any hiccups, there's 4 or 5 guys behind him that are just waiting to take some touches from him. So that's the biggest risk, I would think.
Yeah. I can see that it's risky. You saw in that little mock draft that we did a few weeks back. I took Trey Sermon and Raheem Mostert. Just trying, I'll get one of them. I'll get one that's going to be in there because you just don't know from week to week, like you said. So I think Mostert will be their top guy just because he's been there and loyalty, and as long as he can stay healthy, I think they'll trot him out there. But he's definitely got that injury history, and he's got some age to him now. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I agree. I think from a lot of those points actually would kind of keep me away from someone like Mostert, although he's just so appealing down, when you get down to some of these kind of guys, just because he is such a good athlete, and he's he's hitting a home run every time he touches the ball almost, or it feels like he can. So some of that kind of stuff is, exciting to have. But yeah, just the injury history and, just the way that team ran last year would kind of maybe keep me away a little bit there. I agree with that.
Didn't he get hurt on an 80-yard touchdown run? Am I remembering that right?
Well, he had a couple of 80-yard runs. I don't think he got hurt on the touchdown itself, but he got hurt he got hurt up in New York on the Jets field, like a lot of guys did, and he had another game where he got hurt as well. But he had the top two fastest touchdown runs of the season in the NFL. So if he can continue to do that, I mean, he's the most exciting player. You sit there with no points, and then next thing you know, it's 15 points because he broke off an 80-yard touchdown. So it's worth rostering for that alone.
Yeah, he helped me win my league in Dynasty a couple of years ago. Picked him up on waivers and wrote him down the stretch, and he helped me win my league from the flex spot. It was awesome, but I traded him right away because I kind of looking at the age and undrafted free agent I think he was, and kicked around a lot. I didn't want to count on him doing it year after year, but he is exciting when he's healthy and when he gets a chance out there. So, Mike, you got one for us from that round?
Well, I promise this is not retaliation on you here, Mark, but mine was going to be Mike Davis at 44.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. Okay.
And only because he's clearly the number one running back there. There's not much depth behind him that anybody knows much about. So he's definitely going to be that guy, but can he do it for 17 weeks? And it's really just running backs around him. If you're looking for a running back at that kind of pick, I'm taking Kareem Hunt in 10 out of 10 drafts. And it's really just kind of, I guess, hell, it's ADP. It's where I don't like him, I guess. But yeah. I just think he's, even Chase Edmonds is a few, the next round after him. I just think, I'd be concerned about him making it through the entire season before somebody takes him over.
Well, I unfortunately have to agree with you. And I've said the same that, I'm looking at him as a guy that hopefully gets me, good 8 weeks or so until somebody like Devontae can maybe start taking over more of a role in Denver. So it's hard to disagree with it. He's another one that's, he's in decent shape. He's older, but he's in decent shape. I don't look at him like a Henry though. That could take that wear and tear. I look at him, a guy that's in good shape, but he's older and it's starting to catch up with him. And you could see it in Carolina last year. And of course I watched most of their games being here in Carolina, and you could just see it. He was just starting to wear down, and they had to start bringing in other guys and rotating to give him a little bit of a break because he just couldn't handle it week after week. So I went with Julio Jones, and mainly just because again, it's the age and the injury starting to catch up with him. In fourth round, there's guys there I'd rather have than Julio Jones, and I feel like if you go for that name recognition in the fourth round, that's a round you got to make hay, man. You got to make these guys count, and I'm just not so sure about Julio anymore. I would, if he was there in the sixth round, I'd be happy to snatch him up and go for that upside. But in the fourth round, I just feel like it's a little bit too high. What do you guys think about Julio?
Yeah, I agree. I kind of looked at him as well. I'm thinking about this round, but I kind of feel like a lot of the Titans really, he's going to be a better NFL player than a fantasy player. But yeah, I think, looking at that, like you said, Mike Evans is still there. Amari Cooper's still on the board. Guys like that I'd rather have over someone like Julio. And I think you're right. At that point, you're just drafting Julio Jones because he's Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, Julio, even in Atlanta for, past several seasons, there's a lot of times where he would stretch the field to get other people open. But, we've seen the seasons where he's finished with 2 or 3 touchdowns, so it's, I could see that being a continuation. He's going to stretch the field. He's going to create running lanes for Henry. He's going to get A.J. Brown open. But yeah, I don't see 12 or 15 touchdowns out of him at this point in his career.
I'd love to see him get a deep run in the playoffs and be playing, all those years in Atlanta and not much to show for it. So I'd love to see him be successful there. But yeah, Mike made a good point there. He's going to be a better NFL player than fantasy probably, and I hope it works out for him this season. But I'm not going to get him that early. I'm really not. All right, guys, let's do one more round. Let's do one more round here. The fifth round. That's going to be picks number 53 through 65. Aaron, give us a gold mine.
Yeah. Well, I would say, there's a couple options I could go with. I think I'm going to go with 59 and Deontay Johnson. I like how Pittsburgh drafted. I think finally see Ben Roethlisberger actually exercise is like incredible to me. So I can tell he's actually committed more than he has been in the past. But I think that team will have a good year. I think they really were upset with how things ended last year, especially after starting 11-0. They have a great running back that they've drafted that, could really have a great season, and, a couple good receivers. So I think Deontay Johnson will have a pretty good year there.
Well, interesting. That was my pick too. And I again, looking in the fifth round, my three, third, fourth, fifth were CD, Woods, and Deontay. And I'm looking at, like, if I went 2 running backs and then I got those 3, I'd be pretty stoked, man. Deontay, got a lot of targets, and I think that'll continue. Yeah, he had some drops. He might be lower than he would have been because he had some drops last year. But hell, they were slinging the ball all the time. So I feel like he's a really good, solid pick there that's going to get some volume. And that's what you want. If you can get a guy like that in the fifth round, getting that kind of volume, Chase is good and more of the field stretcher. Juju, he's there, but Deontay to me is kind of the top dog there. So I'm happy to get him in the fifth. What do you think, Mike?
No, I agree. I don't obviously think that Ben Roethlisberger has a long career left ahead of him, but I don't think he's going to be as completely useless as everyone's kind of joking around this year either. I think they get a solid running back. If Najee comes in and does what everybody thinks, it's going to help Roethlisberger, and obviously everybody knows in turn helps the passing game. And I think Deontay Johnson's probably going to benefit from some of that pretty directly. So yeah, I agree on that.
Was that your pick, or did you have somebody else there?
Yeah, I think the obvious one is Darrell Henderson this late, but with the recent news, that's why. But yeah, take that out of it. And actually, I do agree with Deontay Johnson that late. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I think with Darrell Henderson, you have to wonder if he's going to keep moving up the board or not. He could easily creep up into that fourth round, maybe even high fourth, just outside of the third round, because he's going to be viewed as a running back one. He's going to be he should be the top guy there in LA. If he was up that high, I'd call him a landmine. I have him on my team, and he's, thank goodness I traded for him to back up Akers, but he's another one kind of like Mike Davis. I look at him like I don't count on him to get me through the whole season. I think he could be he might miss some time. I just feel like he can miss some time. So take Darrell Henderson out, and Deontay's looking pretty good there. All right, Aaron, give us a landmine in this round.
Yeah, so my landmine, I'm going to go with Kenny Golladay. And I think it's kind of similar issue to before. I think he's a decently talented receiver in a really bad situation in New York, where the coach, I don't know what he's doing, but it doesn't seem to be working. It seems like he's trying to bring the Patriot way to the Giants and micromanage the heck out of the team. And, you see things like people having brawls in practice during training camp. Those things shouldn't happen, but I think it's a little foreshadowing to what the season's going to be like. Daniel Jones, I don't think anybody's fully sold on him yet and his potential. There's just so many question marks there that I think it's going to be tough for him to to have the season that he probably wants to have, and who knows where the Giants are going to end up this year. I think they've really got some learning to do as a team and some identity crisis issues, so that always makes me concerned. So he's my landmine.
I listened to the audio of that fight, and I swear I heard somebody say dog pile on Danny Dimes. I could be wrong. It was, kind of confusing, but if they didn't say it, that was the result. Dog pile on Danny Dimes. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, Galladay, a little bit older, and now he's got the injury thing. But even without the injury, he's a little bit older and changing teams. And Jones is a big question mark right now, so I can see that one. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I agree, and especially him hurting his hamstring so early in camp is a big red flag for me, especially after last year. With a guy like that and that kind of injury going on, you hope that he at least makes it into the season before it starts to get him again. But so if I'm the Kenny Galladay owner, I'd be a little worried. But right now, anyway. But, and again, same kind of thing. Like if I'm looking at a wide receiver at that point in the draft, there's some guys around him that I'm a little bit higher on. So actually he was my pick for a landmine at that point as well. I was back and forth on him and Odell Beckham, but kind of similar to me anyway. So Galladay loses because he's higher for me.
Yeah. I think we don't want Odell to be a landmine. We all just want one more good season out of Odell. We all just keep calling for it, but that might not have been a bad choice.
I justified trading him because if you look at everything and you take out that it's Odell Beckham, he's a guy that in my mind you're looking to move, and you're not looking to have on your team anymore. And maybe it's the Julio Jones treatment. It's Odell Beckham, probably one of the greatest talented wide receivers that I've watched anyway. He lost the game of the catch, just pointing that out quick. But yeah, maybe at that point it's just Beckham. So you're drafting the name again.
Yeah. Well, I went with Chase Edmonds, and I like Chase Edmonds, and I had him in both dynasty leagues, but I traded him away in both dynasty leagues. 2 years in a row, he's had a chance to take the reins, as it were, and he just didn't do much with it. He got hurt 1 year, and I will say I can't remember who they were playing. It was a really good defense that they had to go up against, but he had a game where Kenyon Drake missed a game, and he just wasn't good. Like I said, it was a good defense. I'll give him that much, but I just start to wonder if he can be a workhorse or not. And the fact that they brought in Connor, to me, says they want to split that load up a little bit. They don't want to count on him to be there every down back. He's great pass catcher. I kind of feel like that's where it ends, though. I just don't think he's going to get a lot of carries and be in there enough to justify that 5th round pick. I feel like, you hear some of these, I listen to a lot of podcasts. So the big thing they talk about this year is the running back dead zone. And he's definitely in the dead zone where you get these guys in the 3rd, maybe 6th round, I think it is. And they just don't return value much. I feel like Chase is one of those guys. You're kind of reaching and hoping that he's going to be the top guy, but I don't see it. What do you guys think about Chase there?
Yeah, I'd agree. I had Chase down at one point because of having Kenyon Drake on my roster. Kind of followed his his path a little bit last year, and I think bringing in James Conner was kind of an indictment of the fact that he isn't going to be the lead guy. So, I mean, obviously a lot of red flags. I mean, a great team. They're probably going to do a decent job running the ball, so I'm sure it'll get touches. But aside from that, definitely some big question marks.
Yeah.
I think the biggest way or the best way to explain my thoughts on Chase Edmonds is I'm sure that everybody in here right now has been offered Chase Edmonds in a trade, and we've all denied it every time.
Oh, has he been on the block? He hasn't tried to trade him back to me. We're talking about Ian, right?
But I guess that is the dynasty side of it. But I guess it does kind of prove the point that, I wouldn't want him on my team really at all, unfortunately, because he is so talented, but he's just kind of squandered that talent, it seems like. So yeah, I agree with him as a landmine there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had him for the last 2 years in both. In this league was 1 year, but I'd had him the year before that in the other dynasty league. So having him rostered for a couple of years and watching him up close and personal, I finally started to think maybe it's not going to happen. So I went ahead and got rid of him. I got Javonte Williams out of his deal in the other dynasty. So I got Javonte in both leagues now. So Chase got me Javonte in one league. So we'll see how that goes. Well, guys, I could sit here and do this all night with you, but I don't think people would listen to it if we went much longer. So I think we're going to wrap it up right there. Aaron, I really appreciate you coming on
Yep.
and doing this with us. It was a lot of fun. Good to talk this now with redraft coming up. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We'll get you back, man. We like having you on. I always enjoy your analysis. So I guess that's going to be it, Mike. Seems like I'm forgetting something. Can you remind me? Is there something that we need to?
Oh yeah, Ian, you suck.
You suck.